really super touchy. Were you leaving a headset by any chance?
No.
You were? Okay.
No, and I had earbuds that worked beautifully that suddenly don't. And I've been very frustrated with the Chromebook trying to come up with a good audio. I want to tone it out and all this other fun stuff. And
so we are being recorded and we're live streamed. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody to Oregon City Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. Starting off on our agenda is introductions. And so as they appear on my screen, if you would just kind of wave and say hi, that'd be great. So we have Sean Dashler and Derek Kugel, Andy Crump, Brent Haverkamp, Karen Morey,
verbal wave.
And I am your chair, Troy Bollinger. So welcome tonight. We appreciate you being here. Tim West is excused from tonight's meeting for other engagements. So first off, the approval of the minutes. You need a few seconds here, a couple of minutes to gather your thoughts. Please do that. And then if anybody wants to make a motion on approval or questions, we will take that as well. Sean, please.
Quick question. I'd like to know when the minutes were provided to us. I have not seen them the last several months, even though we've been approving something each month.
Are you saying you're not getting the published minutes when they're published on Unicode and not having the opportunity to review those minutes?
Yeah, I have no emails since you've been the director at the city.
It's just published on Unicode for review.
Okay, then let's clarify. Traditionally, minutes are always sent out with the next month's agenda or as part of the packet because it's something we're supposed to be reviewing tonight.
It was published in Unicode with the packet and the agenda in Unicode. And it's normally published at the very least 7 days before.
And that's when you send us a link, or you send us an email with a link in it directly to that, don't you, Kendall?
No, Unicode is attached to, well, yes, that email does go out that has the link to the packet. And so you should be getting that. If you're not getting that and we don't have your information on that list, it's also on the website where you can go and pull it up. But if you like for us to make sure to double check our list to make sure you're included, I would be more than happy to do that.
Could we also, when we get the agenda sent to us from Justin, in the body of that, could it include that link just so it's in the same place?
If I'm correct, when I send out the email, the agenda is attached with that attachment. So I will make sure that is attached when it goes out and make sure that we have a separate email that goes out to you with the agenda and the packet link attached.
Okay. That would be wonderful. Karen, did you have anything along those lines, or I guess anything at all?
Yeah, this is where I do know my tech. Kendall,
Yes.
When you send the link out, if I open it on my phone, it takes me to a PDF of the agenda. It doesn't, if I keep scrolling down, it'll take me to the city website. We need to go to the city website meetings and look at there's two choices of looking at the meeting. We need the second one, but you have to go in and actually click it and get the HTML or the PDF to see all of the attachments. The agenda itself, if I open it on my cell phone, does not give me the links to the material that's attached. It really would be more helpful to attach a copy of the minutes to the meeting announcement, or we're gonna have to do a little walkthrough on this as we add new people and figure out how to get to those attachments. I'm with Sean on this one completely.
That's not a problem. We do have a list of over 80 people that we send out the agenda, the link to the packet, the link to the YouTube videos, also another link to the website. And we can actually add all of you to that link that we send out on a monthly basis. I wasn't aware that you weren't included in that link, but I will definitely make sure to double check and make sure you get access to all of that.
Yeah, from my standpoint, I thought I was missing something. And so I think it was last month, I was scrambling in the background trying to look through emails, trying to find it, because traditionally the email that the director sends just to PrAC with the agenda would also, and it's a PDF, would also have a PDF of the prior month's minutes.
Okay.
Exactly.
That hasn't been something I've done in over a year and a half.
Yeah.
So I will definitely make sure that process is changed.
It can
Okay.
also be just on your website, and when you pop right up to the website, you can go directly into either the agenda or the packet. The packet has this meeting's agenda with the minutes, just like Sean said. So if you just sent that thing with that, solve that problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just
So
not just the agenda. The packet includes the agenda and all the minutes and everything.
Right.
That would be great.
Right.
Okay, so from Karen, and thank you, Andy, for making more clear what I was trying to say. I have read the minutes. I move that the minutes be approved as posted.
I second. Andy.
Okay, so it's a motion by Karen, a second by Andy. Any discussion, any other questions before we vote? Okay, Kendall, will you poll, please?
Yeah, I can pull.
Okay.
Troy Bollinger,
Aye.
Sean Batchelor,
I'll abstain since I did not read them.
Karen Morey,
Aye.
Andy Crump,
Aye.
Derek Kugel,
Aye.
and Brent Haverkamp.
Aye.
Motion passed.
All right.
By the way, good minutes, a lot of details.
Yes.
Thank you.
So moving on to public comment, this is a time for the public to chime in on items that are not on the agenda. If the item you want to speak about is on the agenda, we will take that at the time of that item, just to make sure that we're not forgetting what was said and it can be part of that discussion at the time. So Kendall, do we have anybody that wants to share anything about items not on the agenda?
No.
Okay, then we will move to Mule Creek Canyon Park grand opening presentation. And for that, we will be hearing from Monty Wood. And I don't know who's going to handle this to start, but anyway, Monty and Christine Lewis, the two of you have the floor.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us tonight. I'll get started and then hand it over to Monty. We just have a brief presentation and then definitely here for your input and questions. But my name again is Christine Lewis and I am your Metro Counselor. I serve District 2, which is Oregon City, all the way up to Milwaukee, east to Happy Valley, and then on the west side, part of Southwest Portland, Lake Oswego, and West Lynn. And Monty Woods is staff at Metro managing all of our park operations across the entire region. And we're excited to share that Newell Creek Canyon Nature Park is opening on December 6th, so just a few days from now. All of us here are fortunate to know what's going on with parks. So you probably have a little bit of a sense, but y'all are going to be good communicators to help our friends and neighbors as they're discovering this new gem. Obviously, we can't do any of this work that we do at Metro building out regional parks without the involvement and trust of the voters who have chosen to invest in nature through our Parks and Nature bonds in 95, 2006, and then just recently in 2019, as well as our local option levy. These investments pay for the planning, construction, and ongoing restoration, and Newell Creek is certainly a gem. Decades of conservation work have allowed us to open up these 236 acres that are a balance of connecting community to the land while also creating safe habitats for sensitive species. There are several species of frogs and some steelhead there that are certainly indicator species of the health of the environment. I want to note that we couldn't have done this work alone. The Greater Oregon City Watershed Council really took a lead, and we owe them a debt of gratitude. We've worked together with volunteers to restore riparian and upland conifer forests, and we have spotted beavers, red foxes, black-tailed deer, all on site. So beginning on Monday, Newell Creek Canyon Nature Park is open to everyone. We have ample parking, restrooms, picnic areas, is accessible to all. There's 2.5 miles of walking trails and paths for hiking and almost 2 miles of one-way bike trails. And you can cross creeks, and Tumble Falls has a little bridge by it. So it's a really nice viewing area. I recommend everybody go check it out in person. One thing that won't be a surprise to you is that Newell Creek Canyon Nature Park management has been and will continue to be something that we have to talk about in light of homeless neighbors and camping. We're prepared for this challenge. We believe that by introducing active and positive daily presence, we will see a change in the culture and how folks are using Newell Creek Canyon. And as we have approached the opening, Monty has been able to make connections with law enforcement and fire in Oregon City and at Clackama Sheriff's, just to introduce himself, his team, and make sure that we're going to have some seamless operations for when people run into those sorts of challenges on site. The newly built park entrance is located at the end of Fox Lane, off of Malala Avenue, otherwise kind of just described as behind the electric lettuce. But hopefully it'll become more of a location where people know how to get there. The park opens at sunrise, closes at sunset, and there's gated the parking area is gated, and it'll be locked and unlocked each day. So it'll be closed at night. Park operations team will be available and on site so that visitors can ask questions about the amenities, ask questions about nature. And there's also a map at the kiosk and wayfinding signage throughout the trail system. There's a guide, oregonmetro.gov/Newell Creek, that is full of information about the trail system and all the things you might want to do when you visit. And we're just looking forward to having people join. We don't have a formal ribbon cutting, partly because of COVID. We didn't want to plan a mass gathering and instead invested our resources in that website where there's a video and just some more kind of cool ways to explore the park before you go. So with that, I'll hand it over to Monty, and we're happy to take questions, comments, and feedback as well.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions folks may have. And thanks so much for having us tonight.
Okay, Sean has a question.
More of a comment. This is an exciting time. It's one of the first mountain bike trail systems. I remember being down at the Pioneer Center when we first kind of, it was a large public meeting, and we had boards that we put name ideas onto, and it's interesting to see this. And with all the congratulations, there's also things, lessons we can learn. This project is over budget. It's several years late, so that's worth acknowledging, I think, to the public. it's important to recognize that this didn't occur as Metro had promised. And the second thing is, and I'm hoping Metro will change their tone on this, is that in the design, there was supposed to be a playground. That was removed, at least from our understanding, by Metro staff, despite public input, and said that it was going to be in a phase 2 or somewhere down the road. And we all recognize that playgrounds, frankly, are one of the smaller costs in a project like this. So it's very disappointing, given that it's a smaller piece of the pie, that it wasn't in phase 1. And so I'm hoping that Ms. Lewis and Monty could maybe speak to that, see what kind of priority that can get. You know, frankly, if you look at many of the residents that are going to use this park, to them, they don't see the brand Metro versus City of Oregon City. It's just another community park. And so we're already, you know, part of our job is to look at areas of the city that are underserved. That was an underserved area. So many of those families, while they can enjoy nature, the intent was to also be able to have active play in a play structure too. So, you know, a little positive and negative, but I figure it's worth noting both rather than just sugarcoating it.
Monty,
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, go ahead. I was just going to turn it over to you to respond if you want.
yeah, and I'll let Monty expand a little bit more from the operations standpoint. But when we are investing our parks and nature dollars, really are focused on ecological values. And as much as play structures are used and help make things attractive, we often have to match other funds and not our bond funds for playgrounds. So when talking about how that part of the project fell off, it's likely a lack of outside funds or matching funds and not actually a Metro bond dollar that wasn't expended in that way. Absolutely share your frustration. You know, all of this past year, I've been asking, when is the opening going to be? I'm delighted that we're here and that we have been good stewards of the funds, even through a challenging time, when you know as well as anybody that finding contractors and getting things done during COVID was, we were slowed. Monty, can you talk a little bit more about the playground?
Yeah, absolutely. I can confirm, you know, we're still considering it as a second phase, as Sean pointed out. And I just want to say thanks. I was at some of those initial meetings as well. And this is just such an accomplishment. I'm just so happy to be here to talk about Newell Creek. In terms of the playground, programmatically, we do have some wonderful play experiences out in our system. And while I know that doesn't put one immediately at Newell, I just want to remind you that, you know, check out our website. You know, there's a lot of good connections to excellent play in place at Metro. And we continue to consider that as another phase. Also, you know, in design and construction, you know, we really focused on building some excellent mountain bike and shared use trails. And I feel like the experience there is going to be very immersive and wonderful. It'll appeal to beginner bikers, and I know I'll have my 10-year-old and 6-year-old out there riding with me. And in that regard, I feel like there's definitely something for everybody at Newell to enjoy and stay busy and enjoy the park. So thank you.
Thank you. Brant, you have your hand up.
Yes, I do. First and foremost, thanks, guys. I love the presentation. I'm really looking forward to going up to Newell Creek and trail running up there and using the mountain bike trails. I appreciate the comment about also being good stewards of the money, because in this time and day with limited funds, we all have to be good stewards. However, I have not heard when this next phase for the playground is. Is this on the books? When is this? What's the timeline for the next phase for the playground?
Sure. So right now we're considering a number of potential projects, and that one is included. And so we're looking across the system and trying to make priorities for those next projects to come. And so those conversations continue. I don't have an update tonight, but I hope to soon.
Okay.
And I also hope to see you out on the trails because I'll be running too.
I appreciate that, Monty. So it sounds like basically it's in the ideation phase, but it hasn't been executed. Is that what I'm hearing?
It hasn't been executed. It's considered as a second phase right now, and we'll be working on that. That's the most information I have. Is I'm with the operations team, and that work is more or less centered with planning's efforts. So I'm happy to gather information, but that's what I know of tonight.
Okay, fair enough.
From a council perspective, on the funding side, we will in the springtime get the next update on capital improvements for the entire system. So not just this park, but system wide, and how that fits into the refinement for the bond. So it won't be for like 4 or 5 months now before I even see the beginning of next year's decision package.
Okay, cool. Thank you for providing that perspective, Christine. That's helpful. And Christine, you mentioned spotted beavers are residents in the park. Is that correct? Christine? Am I? Oh,
No,
can you hear me?
We can hear you. Christine, can you
Okay.
hear us? Oh, she was frozen for a little bit.
Oh, sorry, I froze. When did I freeze saying something important?
We didn't hear anything you said.
No, it was during my question. Christine, 2 clarifying questions. One, did you say that spotted beavers are living in the park? Is that correct?
Beavers have been spotted, not spotted beavers.
Okay. All right. So yeah, because a spotted beaver is a specific type of beaver. I was just like, whoa. Okay.
No. We've had sightings. I shouldn't use the word spotted. Beavers have been sighted.
Okay.
Spotted. Yes.
Thank you. And then, Christine, my last question is, in regards to the homeless, you made a comment of active and positive daily presentation. What exactly do you mean by that? What does that mean?
I think I said daily and active presence.
Presence. Okay.
Yeah, presence. So that means as we fill the park with people having picnics or out for a hike, it will become more and more uncomfortable for the folks that we go and we ask them to please move along by tomorrow to still be there. So we go in a humanitarian oriented way, recognizing that right now there are limited options, but we come with all of the options that we have. And we generally are saying, and by tomorrow, do you think you could have, moved into this place or that place? And when it's just a nature preserve, it might be another week before we're back there. But if we're there every day, it's going to be harder for folks to still be there the next day.
So what you're saying is Metro is going to be having a physical presence in this park?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
A member of Monty's team will be on site to unlock the gate, to close the gate, to clean the bathrooms every day, to walk the trail. Monty just said he's going to be on bike. So there will be somebody wearing a Metro shirt around there once, twice, 3 times a day. Monty, did I sum that up correctly?
That was fantastic. Yeah, I just clarify it's an automatic gate, so we do have it on a timer.
Okay.
We don't need to open and lock, but we will be there every day. And especially as we introduce use to the site, we want to be a resource to our new visitors. There's a lot of excellent opportunities, and we want to make sure we're connecting people to those. So we're going to make that a priority, and we'll be around on a daily basis to help out.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brent. Karen, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd seen a presentation a couple of weeks ago and had a question I'd posed and haven't heard an answer to quite yet. Back on the homeless. I appreciate that the presence of more people in that area will help. But basically, when some of those folks are displaced, they have ways to get up into the cemetery. And I had asked if Monty and Jonathan had connected, and I was told at that point that no, they hadn't. I see Jonathan is here too. I'm curious if he and Monty have made a connection, so if we have an issue in the cemetery, that he's got the go-to person.
Yeah, so Monty and I actually just worked through another citizen concern or issue at Kanema Children's earlier this week. So yes, Monty and I have touched base, and we are successful so far at helping get information and find ways to resolve problems. So yes.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. I also just like to add, I was able to meet with Oregon City Police Chief Band and another representative of the code enforcement team. And, I'm going to stay in close communication with those resources. I anticipate we'll be put in touch with additional resources in the coming days. And then following the opening of the park, we're planning to regroup after about 5 or 6 weeks to just check in with law enforcement, and I'll be able to connect additional staff, introduce them, and we can kind of just review how use at the park is going, what types of calls have come in, if any, and how we can continue to provide support. So I'm just really looking forward to keeping that communication active and open. And, I just was really impressed being able to touch base with who I've been able to be in contact with so far. So thank you very much.
Andy.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily really have a question, but I have to say that I'm really, really excited by this project. I'm actively involved in the Northwest Trail Alliance, which is a local mountain biking community. We attended a lot of the very early meetings at the Tualatin Hills, got to some of these. And so from a mountain biking community standpoint, this is actually the first metro property that actually has trail system. It's going to be a great system for kids and families to get out there and experience something new. Not a big trail system, but I understand you got to start small and work from there. So from that standpoint, I'm really kudos. A lot of patience from the mountain biking community in general, because everyone hopes to have things done tomorrow, and we understand that there's a process. But I appreciate your comments also about bond dollars and whatnot. You have to follow the rules that you have available to you. And then a comment regarding the active presence. I've actually have seen this repeatedly over and over in areas where we've built trails, in areas such as Weyerhaeuser property, where they had a lot of people doing bad stuff, you could say, essentially. And with the presence of a lot of people and bikers going through there and then reporting the bad stuff to Weyerhaeuser, that was very helpful. We built a trail system out in Cascade Locks, and that was an area where the local Hood River Sheriff that really helped. Dreaded going out there until we had a system, and then we didn't really intend it to be for hikers, but the whole community goes out there, and the bad people don't want to go there because all these people are there. So we've seen that presence. And I'm super excited that Metro is going to have someone there on a regular basis. I assume for a period of time, not indefinitely, but very kudos to that. So, but I did have a question specifically about the opening. It's just a general opening. It looks like all next starting on Monday. Is that right? So you just come and go as you want, and there'll be people there to ask questions then?
That's correct. Yeah. Sorry, Christine. Yeah, we'll be open at sunrise through sunset on Monday.
Perfect.
And our staff will be there. So stop by. Can't wait to see you.
Yeah, definitely. I'm super excited. Thank you.
Yeah, so we're opening 2 new parks this month. Chehalem Ridge opens on the 13th. So our operations staff will spend kind of a week giving us special treatment and then have to give Chehalem Ridge special treatment. But there will be rangers around actually indefinitely, because that bathroom will need cleaning almost daily into perpetuity. So there will be folks around, but yeah, with the first beginning couple of weeks, we'll see some extra presence to help celebrate and orient people.
Great, thank you.
Absolutely. I just add too, when Chehalem opens, that's another mountain biking destination in the region now. So very exciting stuff.
Yeah, exactly. A little bit of a drive.
I have a couple of points. I want to just echo the comments that were made about the play structure. Monty, you said that's being considered for phase 2, but if my memory serves me correct, when we had this discussion over a year ago, and we went out there and looked at the site with Metro. We were told that the play structure was going to be part of the park. And now it's only being considered as second phase, when our understanding with the partnership that Oregon City has with Metro is that it was going to be part of the first phase. So I'm also extremely disappointed in that decision when we were told one thing and then completely saw something different. So if it's only being considered, Monty, if you haven't heard it loud enough, let me say it louder. We want the play structure in there. I understand it's a Metro property, but it's a Oregon City access and predominantly going to be Oregon City residents. And so our message as a citizen advisory committee, which is our capacity here, and speaking for the community, we definitely want that play structure. It's going to be a nice draw because it's going to be on the upper area by the parking lot. So it's going to, no one's going to have to walk or even bike distance to get to it. So hopefully you've heard us loud and clear in representatives of the community, not just 3 or 4 of us, but representatives of thousands of people. We need that. We definitely want that there. The second thing I wanted to bring up is the homeless issue. It's my understanding that Metro has given direction to law enforcement to not remove the homeless from Metro properties and to just leave them alone. And that's concerning to me in just at all, but it's even more concerning to me that now we have a Metro property that's going to have children and families on the premises with the same directive from Metro to leave the homeless alone. So yeah, you're going to have someone out there a couple of times a day, but what is the plan to remove the homeless from the area and to keep them off?
Thank you. Yeah, and I do hear you loud and clear on the play area, just to back up a step, and I'll certainly pass that along. I wasn't present for those conversations, but I'm certainly able to take that feedback and make sure it gets to the appropriate parties and to, as we continue looking at that part of the project.
Thank you.
In terms of, houselessness in Newell Creek Canyon, we've experienced illegal camping elsewhere, and we've implemented a safe and systematic, respectful way to address the situation. Now, in natural areas where there's not public access underway, you're correct. Sometimes there's been decisions made where camps remain for a longer period of time. When we're looking at our cemeteries or public access places like parks, I work with our resources closely when we encounter a camp. And if it's impacting access, public safety, or creating other concerns, I'm able to go ahead and work with our resources internally here, as well as our social services to try and connect campers with wraparound services and even transition to homes. And so our intent is to be there. The park ranger staff, our commissioned law enforcement staff, we have through the team that I work with, we have over 50 years of operations experience, and we're ready for the challenge. We're gonna be proactive, communicative, and work with all the resources that we can to ensure the safest, cleanest, and most accessible park that we possibly can. So the other thing is, I will go ahead and put my cell contact number in the chat here. And I encourage anybody, if you head to Newell and you encounter anything of concern, pardon me, my voice is nearing the end of the day here. I encourage you to reach out to me directly, and I'll provide that contact info, because I want to be responsive and available and make sure that we're doing everything we can, again, to maintain a safe and welcoming park. Thank you.
I appreciate that. And if you could add some clarity as to what actually is your goal. I mean, you say safe, but what does that really mean? I would argue that even if the public doesn't have access to certain parts of the property, that doesn't mean that the homeless individuals don't have access to the public part. And so what happens is you have people that, as they approach their camp, are walking by cars and parking lots and down the trails where the bikes are, where the kids are, to get to that non-public area. So to think that they're never going to mix, I think is short-sighted, because just because the public doesn't go to their areas, they come to the public areas, and there becomes a safety feature, a safety hazard. And speaking to Oregon City Police Department, it's also my understanding that if they go to address the homeless in Oregon City and the homeless take refuge in Metro, that they then have to pull away and do nothing. And then if Metro is going to take care of it from there, there's a lot of delay, certainly hours, potentially days. And we're just letting people at that point just kind of come and go as they want and kind of dodge individuals. So if you could address that a little bit, maybe more specific, right? I mean, I think our definition of safe is definitely different depending on if you live right next door to the park or across the town, or if you're on an advisory committee or not. And so what does that mean for you as far as making it safe?
Absolutely. Great question, Troy. I appreciate it. So for me, I think, and for the team, Title 10 regulations are our governing rules and regulations for metro parks. Overnight use, for example, is not allowed. And so to me, enforcing Title 10 top to bottom, being present, working with the public, responding to concerns, working with campers that need resources to connect them, and also just, ensuring that access can occur as designed to the facility is what safety means to me. And I think when we're talking about changing the culture, there's a big component to, we've created a really special place that offers really unique experiences to a large group of people. And I think we're going to see people take advantage of that. And in my experience at other facilities and properties we manage, it really does impact people's ability to use properties for those not so productive reasons. When you have a busy group of visitors coming in day out, and park staff coming through to maintain and check on the facilities. So, without having the park open at this time, there are going to be issues that we have to coordinate with local law enforcement, with our staff, et cetera. But again, we're equipped with the resources necessary to do that. And we have experience doing it elsewhere. So when I'm talking about safety, I really mean enforcing our rules, communicating effectively, coordinating effectively, and being responsive to our guests and neighbors.
I appreciate that. What I'm not hearing you say, and if I'm wrong, please correct me. What I'm not hearing you say is that you have any plans to remove the homeless from the property. And I'm not hearing you say that you are willing to grant Oregon City Police Department authorization to go on the property and take care of business as they see fit. Am I correct in those?
Well, there's a jurisdictional issue at play as well. Oregon City Police can enforce in the parking area and kind of the trailhead area. When you get down into the canyon, jurisdictionally, that becomes Clackamas County Sheriff. And so this was exactly, or a large part of the conversation I shared with Chief Pan today and our lead ranger, Kendra Carrillo. And that's what we're talking about, is how to most effectively coordinate in those situations to have the best, quickest outcome to support, positive use. And so if there's a developed camp, again, that's impacting visitation, access, public safety, we're going to be proactive in getting it posted and removing it at the best at the best time that we can, and the fastest time that we can, pardon me. But again, without knowing specifics, it's hard to answer to all the potential outcomes or situations that could occur.
Yeah, I appreciate the sheriff portion of that too, because unfortunately they have the same directive to Oregon City Police Department that says don't touch our people on our property. And so that's why you have a lot of homeless underneath the bridge over by the Cove heading over to Gladstone, is because Oregon City Police has not been granted permission to go down there and take care of them. And that's very concerning that we have neighbors, Metro, Clackamas County, and Oregon City, that seem to be kind of tying each other's hands here. So I don't know that I'm going to get any better answer than I've gotten tonight, and I do appreciate you willing to have the dialogue. Counselor, this is on you a little bit too. If we could take this back, that you know, and this is just a guess. I have no statistics, but I'll tell you, for every one homeless person hanging out at the park, you're probably not having 100 to 200 residents that are going to show up there because of fear of safety or cleanliness or whatever other concerns they might have. And so where we're trying to take care of one, which I can appreciate, we're not taking care of dozens and even hundreds of others. So I think we need to take a different look at that. But I absolutely appreciate you having the dialogue, because I know it's not comfortable, and I know I asked direct questions, so I appreciate you commenting that. We have other questions, but I don't want to cut you off. So Councillor Lewis, if you have comments, you certainly can respond to that. If not, that's okay.
Yeah, I want to respond quickly. Metro has 17,000 acres, and we have to prioritize parks that are our active use versus natural area. And what you're going to see this weekend is the prioritization shift, so that you will see essentially a different set of rules in place, as Monty was alluding to, in terms of that kind of like, you got to go, but you can't stay here. Here's your posting, will turn into, you got to go, you can't stay here. Here's your posting. Here's somebody's going to hold your hand as you leave this park. So yes, guided by humanitarian, guided by the fact that there are homeless services that are under development through Metro funding in partnership with Clackamas County that weren't there a year ago. So there's lots of moving pieces. But again, when this park becomes an active park and not just one of our natural areas, rules are different. So if in a month things haven't changed noticeably, reach out to me directly, and I'll have conversation at the highest level with our COO. But I do think that Monty's team will start acting in a different way next week.
I really, really appreciate that. Thank you. And I'm all about kindness and understanding for folks that are on hard times. I think that's a wonderful thing. I think we also need to keep in mind that where we're helping one, we may not be helping 100. And so sometimes we have to, you know, balance those. So Councillor Lewis, thank you very much. That helps a lot. Karen, you had another comment or question?
Yeah, just well, I had a different one, but I want to make one quick point. I'm not sure if Monty made this completely clear. This isn't just police jurisdictions. This is property physically in two different jurisdictions. Part of the property is in the city of Oregon City. Part of the property is in Clackamas County. It's not the police department and the sheriff's office divvying it up. It's who actually is the jurisdiction for that property. But the other one is, I go along with the playground. And that neighborhood is one of the most economically deprived neighborhoods in Oregon City. And having a playground available for the kids in that area, I think would be wonderful. However, I think when we first started discussing this, that property is very close. It was right next to the fence to the cemetery where we're having funerals. And I was kind of left in that discussion with, there was going to be just planning for buffering, plantings, etc., to try to kind of keep some of the ambient noise down between the two properties. So I too will have to say I'm sorry that that hasn't happened yet, but that's also something to keep in mind in the next phase if you move through on the playground, that your neighbors may totally appreciate happy children at a playground next door, but may not giving the adjacent use. That's it.
Thank you. I'll take this back, particularly because I think that really matters how the capital planning has been done. And again, the capital planning can be done and it's unfunded until council makes a refinement of the next set of bonds, and that'll happen in spring. I've underlined playground 3 times. So when we get to refinement next spring, I will make sure to make a playground allotment. And And then in regards to jurisdictional issue, I just want to add in ODOT, because on the west side, there's ODOT land, which adds extra fun to jurisdictional and territorial work in who's responsible for picking up camps.
Thank you very much. And just because I like straight lines and even numbers, Christine, will you underline that a fourth time for us?
How about if I put a star next to it? Yeah.
That works too. No, I appreciate that. Thank you. Brent, you had your hand up. Are you okay now? I saw you took your hand down. Did you have a comment or question on this?
I did have my hand up. It was about jurisdictional issues, but I have to say, great conversation, everybody, regarding jurisdiction. I think I got my questions answered during the course of the conversation, so that's why I put it down. So thank you.
Sorry, I was having a problem getting my mute button. Monty, did you have something you wanted to say in closing before we finish up?
Hey, thanks. Yeah, just really quick. I noticed there isn't a chat for me to put my contact info in. So I was just going to see if there was a good email. I'm happy to send my contact info out to the collective group. And I just want to make sure I was making good on that promise.
Yeah, will you email that to Justin? Is that what you want, Kendall?
Yes, and Monty, I can reach out to you to get that information. That won't be a problem, and I can send it out to the entire committee.
Thank you, Kendall. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you, Troy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to come and present.
Absolutely. So moving on, we've got next agenda item is Tyrone S. Woods Memorial Park. Mike Mitchell is here to issue public comment. Mike, I'm going to give you an option here. We do have a report coming from Jonathan Waverly and his group. Would you like to share, take your 3 minutes before, or do you want to do it after waiting to hear what they have to say? What would you like to do?
I think so that I might not duplicate something that John will cover. I'd rather wait and hear the staff report first.
Okay, then Jonathan, we'll turn it over to you and your group. And then for members of PRAC, let's hold off. Let's make sure Mike gets his comments in after the presentation before we make our comments and questions so that we have all the information. Jonathan, it's up to you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, so I've been asked to talk about Tyrone S. Woods Memorial Park. Can everyone see this okay?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. So the subject that I was asked to speak on tonight was the dog park and the current conditions that we are dealing with at the site. So yeah, Mike had brought up some poignant questions and concerns, and we were hoping that we can address those this evening. So as far as a recommendation goes, I think that number one it will mostly tie into the background of the development of the park. So in general, dog parks are a very complex and unique park asset. I found this interesting quote. If asked 3 things about how well an off-leash dog park works, one could answer maintenance, maintenance, and maintenance. Our new dog park is very well loved and very well used. So that's what ties into that higher need for maintenance. And it also helps to correlate to the success of a dog park, regardless of the size or whether it's small dog, large dog. Maybe you have also a multi-use area. All those factors, the number one thing is always going to be maintenance. Is pretty much the summation. So the bottom line is that we are in establishing an off-leash dog park, the community must also plan and commit resources for the maintenance of it. As we were designing and developing, if you guys can all imagine, we had 3 different directors throughout the process of the build of this park. So that was one thing that was not identified, is making sure that there was added resources and maintenance staff to help address. Also, the monetary costs or the time of the maintenance should have been budgeted before the park was built, but that did not occur as well. So definitely some lessons learned there. Other factors, the frequency of emptying the refuse cans. We've been able to keep up with the amount of feces so far, so that's a good sign. We've also gotten a lot of really good feedback, but we also know that as we're heading into winter and the rainy season, that we're going to be having more issues and addressing more concerns with the condition of the grounds there. So also the resupplying of the dog bags, fixing broken, bent signage. Dogs do like to dig, and we've already had quite a few issues with them finding areas to dig. And then the maintenance of vegetation and turf, and making sure that everything's fully functional and operational. The one thing that we have found is that the wear and tear that's currently occurring is actually higher than any of our sports parks or our sports fields, just because there's a day in, day out, constant wear and tear of the lawn and the grass areas. So one of the things that we've identified is the need to give sections of the dog park a chance to rest. That is also one of the things that when the park originally opened, we held off on opening up the dog park immediately so that the grass would be able to establish better and take root better. But there was also a lot of pressure from the community to get that dog park open. So we tried to find a balance. And the one other item is that unfortunately we didn't design the park with the ability to close off sections. And so if it had fencing where you could close one side of it and keep one side open, while we were doing maintenance projects or like aeration, fertilizing, all those things that we want to try and do. So most likely at some point in time we will, and we've discussed if there's some other possibilities. I want to let everyone know that, yeah, you know, I mean, we've racked our brains over everything. We did, and at the very beginning, have the entire dog park drain tiled during the installation of it. So underneath everything, there is drain tile. But originally, during the summer months, we did notice that the area right at the transition from the concrete side to the transition into the turf, where you would see the most foot traffic, is already, even during the summer months, was already struggling to keep up and was having problems. And so we've added some additional drainage. Some other things that we're looking at, you know, is a rock sand mixture, looking into either pavers or grid soil stabilization underlayment to address the current mud issues. But I do want to make sure that everyone's aware that these issues are not unique to Oregon City. They're fairly common for dog parks in general. So that's just kind of the update as far as the background on the staff on TSW's dog park. And then I think we'll, as far as a recommendation, it is that We'll continue to work through the challenge with the development of a new park and our first fenced dog park. As a reminder, we do have 3 other off-leash dog areas, but the maintenance of the surfacing over the long haul will be one of the most challenging aspects of a dog park stewardship, and it will continue to get more use than any of our sports parks, and it will require us to give those areas a rest, and hopefully that the community will understand that need and be understanding of that factor. I just want to let everyone know that the Parks and Recreation Department is committed to continuing to provide these types of areas, and will work on possibly having other areas that we can capitalize or utilize if we do have a closing, and then strengthen the turf to the best of our abilities, and really get a good well-established turf base so that it will be able to handle the rigors of the dog park. So let's see, just for everyone, so they can get a general census of what the dog park is looking like right now. This is that access point that I was talking about. There is a drain in that corner spot, but this is the area that we've identified that we'd like to use possibly the soil stabilization underlayment. So what you're looking at there is sand, and so we've incorporated a lot of sand to try to minimize the mud effects. But even back towards the picnic table and further out, it's really starting to get torn up as we continue into the winter weather and the rainy season, and foot traffic has not slowed at all there. So, but yeah. The one other question that had come up in regards to TSW was some of the plant material and some of those decisions that have been made. So I did want to let everyone know that we are still working within the 1-year warranty period for all plant material on the site. We lost some trees during the ice storm. We lost some trees during the 115-degree heat day, and then just the drought of the summer month, we lost some plant material. So we'll continue to work with the contractor on getting all plant material replaced and making sure that we have a good tree canopy moving forward and in good conditions. One of the other issues that was discussed was the clover in the lawn. So the type of clover that was chosen is supposed to hold up well for the dog park, but in the main body of the lawn area, we would have preferred to have seen a micro clover over the mix that was used with the clover. It has a larger leaf. Clover in general is nitrogen fixing. And can help lawns to get established, and oftentimes it's more robust and more healthy overall when you're dealing with droughts or high traffic conditions. But that is the one thing that I think from as far as the establishment of the turf, we would have preferred to have gone with a micro clover rather than any others that were used. But all of them come with pros and cons, and just kind of the joys of opening a new park. So as far as next steps for us, we'll continue to monitor and repair accordingly. And there may be a time where we'll have to shut down the area down for repairs. We have not identified a specific dollar amount, but all of that will be coming out of our parks maintenance budget. So definitely more than willing to answer any questions if you guys got them.
Jonathan, thank you very much. Before we go to Prac, Mike, you got 3 minutes, and share whatever you want to with us about this.
All right. Thank you, Troy. And thanks everybody for letting me have the time. I'm going to start by letting John off the hook a little bit. What's going on in that dog park is not a maintenance issue. It goes back to the design or the way it physically was built. I visited that for the first time with my dog last summer and was shocked. And anybody with a dog could have looked at that park and said, this is never going to work. Three main issues. First, that cement pad that's shown here in the picture is way too small. There's very little slope to it. And the drain is not next to the water source. You can see the dog dish there. Just to the left of that, there's a fountain where you fill the dishes. And the drain is off the edge of the cement pad in the mud. So it's too small, not enough slope, and it didn't have drainage built into it. The second issue, just to the right of the picture, there's a valley or a swale in the middle of that dog park, and it drains back toward this muddy area. Right now, last time I was there was about a week ago. It's muddy almost all the way over to High School Road in that low area. And the third thing that I noticed, at the south end of the park, one next to the restroom and one further south, there are two drainage swales with drains, but they're inside the fence. Waterborne illnesses are an issue with dogs when they're standing water, and you've now created two sources of standing water for that will be an issue for waterborne illnesses. My concern, and I want to zoom out and take a little bigger picture, I think we need to answer two questions. How did this happen? This is either a bad design or it wasn't built according to what the design was supposed to be. We need to find out, I think, you need to find out, the city needs to find out, how did this happen? You know, we had professional engineers, professional people design this park. Is this what they designed? If so, that was a blunder. Or was it not built according to their design? And how did that happen? And we need to find out who dropped the ball and what is missing in our process as a city, our process of approval, that we didn't catch that. As I said, I'm smarter than the average bear, but it wouldn't take anybody with any brains to go to look at this park and see that there were going to be maintenance issues just because of the way it was built or the way it was designed. So we need to find out, how did this happen? And more importantly, how can we keep it from happening again? I'm on the city budget committee, and there's money in the budget. I'm sure you all know this. There's money in this biennium to build another dog park. We got to find out, how did this happen? And how can we make sure that it doesn't happen to us again? Because this is really sad. It's a beautiful park. It's a great dedication in the park. And then we have this that we're having to deal with. We need to find out how it happened, and we need to make sure we don't ever let it happen again. And thank you for the time.
Mike, thank you very much. Now we'll go to Prac, and certainly consider the words that Mike shared, but our questions need to be directed to, our comments and questions need to be directed to staff in this. Andy, will you please go first for us?
Yes. John, one thing I was just kind of curious is I'm looking at I go to Bend quite often, and I'm on the Bend Parks and Rec website. If you look on River Bend Park on there, they actually have a park that just has wood chips or some kind of an organic material that's in there. Don't have to water it, low maintenance. You're going to have to clean up and fix holes and things like that. I don't know if that's a viable option. It sounds like with all the drainage that you have, you always have to deal with mud. That would help, but I don't know if that's something that's been considered or not.
Yeah, no, good question, Andy. We definitely considered that. We've considered, all viable options that would work for dog parks, and a lot of people have said, oh, well, I've gone to this dog park and they've completely switched it to dog chips, or to the wood chips, and that's what seems to hold up and work well. But real similar to Mike's point, if you have dogs you know, feces and urine, you know, eventually those chips are going to get pretty gross. And so then you're talking about a maintenance factor of having to go in and replace those chips on a annual or biannual basis. So, you know, I think that in our opinion was not the most viable option as far as a surfacing. You know, there was also talk about AstroTurf. That'd get pretty gross. There's some that have used pea gravel. And then as far as referencing bend parks, you're talking about high desert.
Yeah.
So you're talking about sandy soil.
Exactly.
We are here in the Willamette Valley,
Yeah.
and this soil, it looked really great when they were, I don't know if how many of you went by during the construction of the park, but they had a large milling machine that took piles and piles of soil and graded it all out. But nonetheless, this is still good old Willamette Valley red clay. And so clay doesn't drain as well. I've watched, we have video cameras at this park site, and I've literally watched the rain events as the heavy rains move in. You can see the water start puddling up, and then as the rains subside, you can see the water receding, but it's just not quick enough, and especially during the heavy wet months of winter, for sure. So,
yeah.
But,
well, it sounds like, you know, you're working on it. Mike has some good ideas and things that definitely seem like they could be fixable, and some, you know, definitely some design considerations that need to be done in the future. But anyhow, I hear you, and I sympathize to the challenge you have to deal with. But thank you.
Yeah. I mean, one of the other things is, you know, this is a 1 acre dog park, and so it really concentrates the dogs. I have a good friend who uses the park quite a bit, and he was telling me, man, you know, the dogs, as soon as you come to the gates, all the other dogs come to investigate and sniff noses and see who's joining the pack there. So being able to have, you know, the possibility of a larger space, larger than 1 acre, I think would also help to not concentrate it into such a narrow space. But yeah, no, Mike brings up really good points, for sure. There's no question on that. So, yep.
Thank you for that. Brent?
Hey guys, can everybody see me?
Yep.
Or hear me? Okay.
Yep.
Great dialogue. Mike brings up some great points. From a project perspective, there are some definite lessons learned here in terms of what this dog park has become and the maintenance cost and everything of it. Andy, you and I are thinking very similarly. In comparing to other parks, I was thinking Bend has this park called Good Dog Park, and I think it's the same as the River Bend Park. And John, you bring up a great point that it's desert versus the Willamette Valley soil and everything. But my point in bringing this up is that there's no grass out there. The dogs are happy and they're just just hanging out. I really believe that dogs don't care whether there's grass. I think it's more of a human want versus a dog want. John, I guess my question is, what is the cost in terms of turf maintenance? John?
Yeah, sorry, I was having to unmute there. You know, at this point in time, we don't know. The park hasn't been open yet for a full year. So far, our inputs have been the additional drainage and the sand. But we did, let's see, so before it opened, we fertilized it to try to get it to establish better before the dog park opened. So you would have our maintenance costs of mowing and maintaining the area. the trees, any pruning, shrub maintenance, edging.
Wow.
So yeah, but you know, like I said, if we do end up moving forward, and I like your comment, I can appreciate that. Yeah, the dogs have no clue that their owners are unhappy about the mud. They're in love with it, you know. But there are some folks who've, you know, said, oh well, you know, I don't like to take my dog in there because he ends up getting all messy and muddy, and so I can understand and appreciate that. But you know, we would probably go in, we would aerate, we would add additional sand to help with the drainage, and then also probably overseed. And then once we got a good establishment of grass again, then we would try to fertilize it one last time before getting it reopened. The Geo Underlayment that we were talking about is they're about $20 for let's see, they're 22 by 35. So it's not something that we've ever really used much in our park system. You know, it's just something that we're trying to analyze right now, but it's been used at John Storm Park because there's a need for public works to drive and to access the vault for the pump there. And so they actually have to drive vehicles on it. And so it helps to stabilize the grass to the impacts of a vehicle. We're curious to see if it would work to stabilize the impacts of, you know, 1,000 little feet running across it on a daily basis. So
okay,
just seeking solutions.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you, John. I guess I kind of want to provide a different point of view. And is anybody aware of Lucier Farms Dog Park out in Lake Oswego? Has anybody been there? Visited this place?
Is that bark chipped?
No, it's not. It's basically, it's a site smaller than TSW. It's out on Stafford Road. If you ever want to go out there, they actually have 2 dog parks out there, completely fenced off. 1 dog park for older dogs and 1 dog park for active dogs. And there is 0 turf out at this facility, which helps what I would imagine reduce the maintenance costs for the turf and the trimming of what you just mentioned. So I'm kind of like, want to give a different point of view of there might be a different way of thinking about this. Instead of just focusing on turf and grass, we might want to look at doing a better dirt, you know, a different idea. And this kind of ties in with Mike's idea of who designed this originally and who, you know, there's some lessons learned from this. And there is no failure, just as long as we learn from our lessons. So I want to point out, you know, this Lake Oswego park called Lucier Farms Dog Park. I would invite people to go out there and check it out and see if, you know, we might want to provide that kind of dirt or, you know, groundwork versus always trying to have to soil and seed and maintain. And that's all. I apologize for being so
no, I
witty.
appreciate that. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Brent. Sean, go ahead.
Yeah, so I have 2 questions and then some comments. The first question for John, is this space too small to put a splitter fence in? I'm thinking right now we're still within the year. You could probably get that paid for out of SDC funds versus maintenance funds.
Yeah, we were just trying to figure out location wise, you know, where would it, and then, you know, we were actually looking at, there's the orange temp fence that we could possibly run across sections to, you know, close down a section, get it overseeded, fertilize it, and then open that section up, close another section, and kind of flip flop it. But there really isn't, like Mike was saying, you know, that's the kind of the main access point right there. So There's not a real good area, and dogs don't always respect the orange fence.
Well, and that's why I'm wondering if we, while it's under SDC budget, why don't we bring in a cyclone splitter fence down to that concrete pad with another set of inner gates? And so you could literally have play area A and play area B that are accessed from that concrete pad. And so you could literally shut something off for a month or 2 months for a more long-term repair. And this problem isn't going away. And so having that fence paid for out of the correct budget at this point might be a better long-term solution.
Yeah, I'd be more than willing to explore it.
Okay.
Yeah.
The second one, and it's always been my concern, is the clover and the turf for the majority of the park, and very specifically when you're on High School Road, that semicircle grass area. I don't believe turf should have been used. So was turf I don't believe that clover should have been used at all. Was clover in the contract to be used and not something like a ryegrass or a field grass?
Well, yeah, it's a blend. It's a blend, and a lot of times clover is used in those blends to because it's a nitrogen fixer. So when you have it in those blends of grass and turf, that it will help to create nitrogen, which will help the grass to grow. And the idea is that if you're using a micro clover, the grass will eventually outcompete it. So yeah.
So I'm not in the industry. I work in computers, but I will tell you from my layman's impression, when Wesley Lynn Park was seeded, and to this day, it is a ton of clover. I would say if anybody looks at TSW, especially the semicircle area I'm talking about, it's 100% clover. So did the contractor not seed correctly?
I mean, I don't think that the contractor seeded incorrectly. Okay. This is part of establishing new turf. I mean, I think that is just kind of, you're not gonna start a new lawn and especially, I mean, Sean, of all people, what this used to look like.
Oh, I do.
This was a blackberry patch, and with Scotch broom, and so yeah, no, I mean, Denise and I would be out there on site, and we'd be trying to identify, what is that's popping up over there, and what's this here, so and like I said, I mean that is something, but I mean, some people really like clover. Some people don't like clover. Some people just see green, and they really appreciate the fact that it's all green. I know sometimes the clover can be a lot more aggressive and grow faster, which is why I think that a smaller growing variety of it might benefit us better. And then eventually a lawn will establish that so there is grass seed out there. I promise you that.
Okay. I'll take your word for it. From my perception, it seems like a problem that should be looked at in future parks. I mean, I guess when Filbert Run is seeded next spring, we can look at that too, but going clear back to
it's already been seeded.
Oh, it has. Well, I mean, looking at Wesley Lynn though, I mean, it's still a ton of clover, and so I guess I'll just close with I absolutely want to echo what Mike said. He's 100% accurate. He was on this committee when we did all the design for this park. He knows exactly what's going on. And to me, I believe, I think like he does, that the problems in the dog park, the drainage, the angles, that, is that a construction defect? Did they not follow the plans, or did our designer not design it in an effective, cost-effective way for long-term use. And I think that's something that staff at some point should look at and report back to PrAC. I won't be on PrAC next year for that, but I would be curious and definitely tune in. This is a lot of taxpayer money that's been spent on this, but we need to treat it as if it came out of our own checkbook, because at the end of the day, it did. And I guess my final comment that I don't feel comfortable making, but we should all remember that I recognize we don't have enough maintenance funds. But when the city commission signed the contract to build this park, they committed to the maintenance. So the maintenance was agreed to and determined at that point. And so we as a city need to step up. And that's all I have. I think Denise may have raised her hand to comment back to me.
I did. I was looking at our seed mix. So originally it was spec'd out to be the micro clover. And at some point the seed mix wasn't available and a substitution was approved. And that was through our architect and contract team. And so when John and I got out there, we both recognized that it looked like it was seeded with clover because clover was prolific. And it went back and forth amongst everybody what seed mix it was. And we ended up figuring out that there was a substitution that was put in play because of the lack of the mix that was originally spec'd. So in hindsight, it shouldn't have gone back to the maintenance staff to look at the substitution option.
Mm.
And so, yes, I think that's a lesson learned, is that those things need to come back through the entire team.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one aspect that we found that we need to make a change, is that speccing right up front that any substitutions needs to go all the way through the chain again. And then as far as budget and maintenance protocols, I agree. We need to do due diligence when we build parks and do them to the best of our ability. We're hamstringed as staff with the budget we're allotted. So as much as we'd like to put more pressure on John and his staff, it really needs to be a pressure on the bigger organization in terms of being able to procure the resources we need to do our due diligence. And so I want to commend John for being able to do what he's done with so little,
mm-hmm.
and acknowledge the fact that, yes, we need more if we're going to do better. Because these guys, by adding Tyrone S. Woods, DC Ladderette, which was existing but lacked the assets that it currently has that require more maintenance, and then we'll be putting on Filbert Run. As a parks and maintenance team, that to me screams deficit. We have all these parks that we're going to do more with less. So it needs to come to a head where we're able to do what we're supposed to do with the acreages and the assets that we have. So that's just kind of my backing up John and his team a little bit in terms of what they need to do their job.
Well, and I thank you for your comments and directly on the Clover. That's kind of what I was looking for. Is, to me, it felt like there was a mistake, and I think acknowledging where it occurred and how we can make sure it doesn't happen again. That's I think all we're asking for. And I think none of us would disagree that the maintenance staff in this city far exceeds anywhere else that I can think of, and they almost do too good of a job, because it almost masks some of the problems, right? They make it look too good, and the citizens don't get a sense like we do because we're plugged in on a day-by-day basis that there are huge deficiencies. And so I think that's why a review like this is good at this park. It's a beautiful park at the end of the day, but understanding the lessons learned are really important. And I think even in a simpler side, in the next park that goes to commission, if Kendall's still the director, I think that's on Kendall and staff to point out that while I'm coming to you for approval of SDC fund, blah, 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 on a contract, I can't tell you I have the maintenance staff to maintain it. Those sorts of things, those are the hard statements that we're all going to have to say. So that's it for me, Troy.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate that. Denise, thank you for your input along with that. Karen, go ahead.
Oh, I just want to thank John and Denise both for some great clarity. And I'm going to have to disagree with the guys here. I'm not a lawn fan. The mini clover definitely has uses. And we have no idea where we're going in the next 10 to 20 years. We are in drought. And the ability to keep a lawn green and watered is going to reach a point where we can't do it anymore. So I think this is going to take a little more thought and a little thought for the future and a future of climate change. And honestly, I encourage moss in my backyard because I don't like to mow. But we have a lot of lawns in the parks that take a lot of maintenance. There are lower maintenance options out there and they take much less water. So I would say I trust John and Denise, and whatever is the best solution for this area, go for it. That's all.
No, I appreciate that, Karen. I mean, you bring up some extremely valid points, in that this was the first year in my tenure as a Oregon City employee that we had water curtailment, and I'd never experienced that at all. But this is your guys' town. I think we as a city are committed to making sure that all of our citizens have water, but that doesn't necessarily always mean that all of our citizens or even all of our assets have water to make sure that we have green grass. So that's a very good point, Karen. And something that for sure needs to be thought about moving forward as we are continuing to add additional park spaces, for sure.
Thank you very much. Brent.
Yep. A lot of good talk again. And Karen, to your point, John, this kind of ties back in to what I was talking about. We might not want to be thinking about turf in the future. Maybe thinking about a better dirt and something to put in there. With all this talk about the type of clover and micro clover and the grass and everything, it made me realize, and it kind of ties back into Mike's point of like who designed this and everything. Who are the subject matter experts that we rely on when we come to these types of decisions when we make a park design?
Yeah, so it'd be the landscape architects.
Okay, and are those employed by Oregon City, or are those contractors, or?
They're contracted, yeah.
Okay, so, that kind of lends some insight as well. And then I just wanted to say, this is a tough battle. And John, kudos to you guys for every day being out there and maintaining our parks. And Denise, kudos to you guys as well. I think that the big takeaways from this is that there are some lessons learned in terms of how we go about and design our parks, who the subject matter experts are, who we consult before we close the requirements that we need for our parks. These are costly things, not only for parks, but I experience this in what I do for work. And that's why I'm kind of speaking with this with a little bit of passion, is that we need to be good stewards of our city's money. And to be good stewards of our city's money, we really need to learn from our lessons and our past mistakes. And I'm not saying that there are any necessarily mistakes here, but there can be better designs and better builds as we move forward. So sorry for my wordiness. Thank you.
No, I think you're spot on, and that kind of touches on what Sean had brought up, is that even just as a Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, maybe after we wrap up a park with a construction project, then we take a few months and then maybe revisit it. What went well? What can we improve upon? Being able to, Sean's giving me thumbs up. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Those are the questions you need to ask after every type of agile project, every type of scrum that you do. So you're spot on, John. Thank you.
Brent, thank you. I've got a few kind of comments and questions too. First, I want to say over the years, we've heard Jonathan come on here multiple times with different projects. And I always appreciate the how candid you are, John, and how direct you are, whether it's good or bad. But I also have to say, I can't remember a single time I've actually heard Jonathan complain. Certainly shared some not so good news, and I appreciate that because that's accurate and that's transparent. But I don't remember a single complaint, and I appreciate that too, because we are understaffed for maintenance. But it seems the important things seem to get done, in the right priority. So Jonathan, I appreciate that, and I've noticed that over the years. Then the question of kind of, is this a design issue or a construction issue? I think Mike brought up some very, very good points. And Denise, you had mentioned that, you had addressed that as well, but I think it's worth noting, I would say very critically, because if it's a design issue, then it begs the question, is it the communication from the community and staff to the design team? And are they just delivering what we're asking for, which means we may be asking the wrong questions and asking for the wrong things, or are they not consulting us since they're the experts in this type of construction? And I think rather than just talk about it and learn from it, I think one of the lessons potentially, and I want to emphasize potentially because I don't know the specifics on this, but a potential lesson to learn here is maybe we need a different designer. If we don't have a designer that's consulting us in the right way to give us the product that we want and need, we need to just not use the same people again and get the same result, but figure out if it was a communication, what we shared with them, what we didn't share with them, or do we need to find someone who's going to consult us better? Because I'm not a dog owner and I don't live in that area, so I don't spend a lot of time there. And I did not recognize the things that Mike brought up with the small pad and the draining. And to me, that seems, for someone who develops dog parks, should be pretty much obvious and in their repertoire of what to look for. I may be speaking a little out of turn because I'm not an expert in that area, but that's what it seems to me. So something that I think is definitely worth noting. Then the other thing is this gets brought to us as PRAC, and we give our feedback on it, and not just specific to Tyrannus Woods, not just specific to the dog park portion, but in many, many projects. Sean, you and I have spoken about this. Sometimes I think organizations, and I'm not talking about staff, but different organizations, engineers, I think you can say the same thing with the work that's going on at John Storm, that we're talked about there. I think sometimes they come to us, they share with us, they hear what we say, but they don't listen. And I don't think, you look at the Metro with the play structure, same thing there. And I wonder if they're not recognizing who we are. And I don't mean that in a way to puff our chest, but we're 9 people on track, but we represent 37,000 people in this community. And we're speaking after talking to members of the community, after hearing, we're speaking to these people and giving feedback, representing 37,000 people. We're not representing Sean or Troy or Brent or anyone individually. And I'm very disappointed, and have been for some time in this area, that they come here almost like it's just another step. We got to get this through PrAC so we can go on to the city commission, or we can give it to staff. That's the frustration I have. I wish that whoever it is, and again, I'm not directing this at staff because I don't think that's where the issue is, but these other groups, and we've seen it happen with neighborhood associations that come and approach us and they want certain things, and they just think that we're a step to the end. And while we're not the end, we are definitely an important step. And so I think we need to make that more obvious to these groups that we need to be heard, because we are the citizens in the community. Then the other thing with that is when this gets brought to us, we get an overview, right? We don't get, and Mike, you probably know this because you've been around the system a very long time, but we don't get drainage, size of pad, the width of the sidewalk. Like, we don't get those details. We get, here's the area where the dog park's going to be, and we're considering turf. We don't, and I don't get me wrong, I don't want to know the turf mixture. Like, that's not a detail that I need to know about. At the same time, since we are representing the community, if we had more details, we would be able to give more feedback on that and potentially prevent some of these problems. And I don't know if that means 2 presentations, one where it's just some preliminary, and then one where it's more detailed, or maybe we just wait till we're farther in the process, but still not at a point of no return. And sometimes we have been at a point of no return where they're only here to tell us what they're going to do, not to ask us what we want. So I think that needs to be considered also. And then I also wonder, we talk about maintenance, and Sean made a good point that once this is agreed upon, then all departments involved have agreed to take on their respective role in this. I just wonder if on occasion it makes sense to bring in the neighborhood associations, and not as a requirement. I mean, I hate adding levels of bureaucracy. I don't think we need to put requirements on the community, but there's nothing wrong with us going to a neighborhood association and saying, hey, do you want to have a part in this? Can you help us with this? Because, I mean, look at the ivy pole. Those guys jump right in there and they just rip that ivy out. And there are a bunch of citizens that just help out. And if we went to a neighborhood association and said, hey, we've got this park that's going in, what part of it do you want to have? And allow them an opportunity to volunteer. I mean, you think about, adopting highways and picking up litter and all these different groups that do volunteer work because they care about the facility. Why can't we do that in Oregon City? I know that's not going to work in everyone because some neighborhood associations aren't very big, some are not active, and I get that. But at the right time, bringing these in and saying, hey, we could sure use your help. Would you be willing to do this and that? I know over the school district, you've got parents and coaches who volunteer to go mow the lawns and prepare the baseball fields because they know that maintenance can't do it as often as it needs to be done, or as often as they would like it done for a nicer facility. So anyway, I think that's worth doing. I know there's some liability. I know I don't want to upset Jonathan's routine with, having to manage other people. And I get all that. That all needs to be considered. But I also think we have a community here that wants to help, and they get involved when things are not right. Well, what about getting them involved to help make it right? Anyway, a lot of words, not really anything I need an answer to, but I'm kind of addressing this to the committee. So as we move forward with these, we can, consider some other ways of looking at it as well. But I always appreciate this dialogue. It's never fun to have. And Denise, I appreciate you being willing to kind of look back on this and look at some, good and some bad, what we're going to do moving forward. So I don't see any hands. Yeah, you got another last comment? Go for it.
Troy, can I just say something?
Yeah, please.
That ties into what you're saying. something that kind of dawned on me during the course of this conversation, and with Mike coming in here and addressing his concerns, is that our committees seem to be working in kind of silos. And when we bring a park together, it's a community event. And I think to kind of break down those silos, we might need to have some sort of cross-team functionalization between the committees to help us see if we are on the right track or the right steps, and to work together towards a common goal. That's all I want to say.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, moving on. Brent, since you were the last one to speak, you're now the first one to speak on this Filbert Run the naming committee update.
Yep. Great. Thank you very much. Happy to report that we reported out to the city commission last night, and the name Hazel Grove Park has been adopted by the city of Oregon City and is the new name of the formerly named Filbert Run Park.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you for that. So any comments on that? I mean, I don't know if there's anything much to say, but Kendall, you got your hand up, go for it.
I'd just like to say Brent did a fantastic job the other night with his presentation, and he also did a fantastic job being the chair of this naming committee. It was a very fair, balanced process. Everybody had the opportunity to speak. Everyone was engaged. So I just want to thank Brent for his leadership and his role in making this happen.
Thank you, Kendall. I appreciate that. And thanks, Sean. I do want to just say also, I drove past the newly constructed park last night at Hazel Grove Park, and fantastic job. It looks great. I'm hoping that we don't have any of these issues with turf and clover that we've been talking about tonight. But I think it will serve that neighborhood in a wonderful way. And I'm really proud of this committee, and I'm proud of the naming committee that we have moved forward and helped develop that park for that community.
Thank you very much. I know you had a tough job on that committee, keeping Kendall in line. He tends to go off the rails a little bit. So that was a good job. So no, we appreciate you doing that.
I just want to give a shout out to Rochelle. She was huge, Troy. She was
I wish she were here to hear this, but Kendall, maybe send her the recording and tell her she needs to watch it from front to back. So that way when she gets to the end, she'll hear that little piece.
Yeah.
So no, Rochelle did a great job and was very helpful. I saw some of those emails coming out and she was very instrumental. Staff reports. Kendall, it's you for staff reports.
So I'll kick things off with some great news. Filbert Run Park, we had our walkthrough on Tuesday. Some of the long lead time items like the light poles and the playground equipment have started to come in. We had some discussions about some additional tree pruning and transplanting that will need to happen, but it's coming along very nicely. It looks great. We just updated our project page with some additional pictures. So everything looks good, and we will move forward with hopefully opening that park in the next several months, sometime in January or February of 2022. So very exciting. The other thing I wanted to bring to your attention was an email did go out to all of you and the city commissioners about the closure of Clackama Park boat ramp for vehicular use. We worked, our communication coordinator, Kristen Brown, worked with the Marine Board and ODF and W about getting the message out and reviewing the message and improving that message. But we are excited about the opportunity to start the master planning process. And just this week, we were able to get our contract approved for our contractor, Lango Hansen, to start the Clackama Park master planning process. So we're in the process of scheduling some time this month to do a kickoff meeting the beginning of the year. I will have them come and present to the city commission what the process will look like, what your involvement will look like, so you can provide some insight in regards to the process moving forward. But that's very exciting. The other thing is the Westgate neighbor project manager RFQ that went out. We were able to get that contract approved for a project manager. We will start the process of working with Plan B to tackle some of those Westgate neighbor projects that we have on our list. We did our walkthrough at the River Access Park and the Cove to talk about what those projects need to look like. So we will be providing some updates to all of you on what that plan is and what that schedule looks like moving forward. Any questions about anything that I announced? I see Karen has her hand up.
I want to second the commendation to Brett for the presentation last night. Excellent job. Now, could you repeat it so that Kendall understands that it's Hazel Grove Park,
Yes.
not Filbert Run?
It's only been a day. It's only been a day.
Okay. Practice, Kendall. Okay, so I have a question also from last night's meeting and my useless comments. It's clear that the mayor will be doing the interviews and the appointments of our 4 vacant positions, which does not allow any of us knowledge of the people that are going to join us in January. And Kendall and I had talked, and I'd like to take you up on your offer. Once we're certain who the mayor has appointed, I would appreciate getting a copy of the applications of the people appointed before our January meeting. So the rest of us at least have some idea of who's going to be filling the other half of our committee out.
Okay.
So just request, please.
All right. And on that note, we are scheduled to do those interviews on December 9th with the mayor. It'll be myself, it'll be Troy, it'll be Sean, and the mayor performing those interviews. And Justin, I think we have 8 applicants. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. We just got another one a day or 2 ago, and then I was gonna send you guys that application.
All right. The other announcement is we're starting our first round of interviews for our aquatics and recreation manager. That will start tomorrow. So we're excited to get that process started. There are some additional hands up.
Go ahead, Brett.
Hey guys, so Kendall, thank you for clarifying. So regarding Karen's question about the interview process and the mayor, it's not that the mayor is just interviewing people in a silo. We do have PrAC representation in those interviews with Sean and Troy and yourself, correct?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
And that's the new process for all of the committees, not just PrAC, because that's how she wants to do it.
Correct.
Okay. But I second Karen's motion, or not motion, it wasn't a motion, but recommendation of, or request of being able to look at the applications as well, so we can be informed and everything and have some transparency about who will be joining the committee. Thank you.
I think it might be wise too, Kendall, to have something on the, make sure we have time on the agenda when we do those introductions, with the understanding that each of them might take a minute or 2 to tell us about themselves also.
All right.
Sean?
Just a quick 2 things. A quick comment on those, that new applicant. When you send out that new applicant, please don't send just that applicant. Please send a new PDF with all 8. So we're looking into one document that'll help. And
yes, please. And maybe even attach it to the invite, the calendar invite would be helpful too.
Yeah. And Kendall, I assume you've wrapped up with your staff report?
Yes.
Okay, then a question. Can you give us an update on the Sportcraft topic, please?
Yes. Negotiations are still continuing. And that is all I can report at this time.
Oh, okay. So no contract's been signed. We're not at that stage yet.
No
Okay.
license agreement has been signed.
Okay, that's what I was curious of. Thank you.
And Kendall, on the Clackama Park closing, we got the email, but I assume that's going to be something that's going to be sent to the public as well, right?
It was, and it was also sent to our city commissioners.
So we're free to share that to the public as well.
Sure.
Okay. Any other questions for Kendall and his staff report? Okay. Now we've got member reports. So this is the time to report to the group, not a time for discussion. And then we'll get to the future agenda items as well after that.
I'm sorry, we still have some staff that need to provide some additional updates.
When you said you were done, I thought you meant you were all done.
It was just me. I'm sorry.
All right, then you go ahead and finish that up. All right.
Melissa, you want to kick things off?
Sure. So, yeah, exciting month ahead over at the swimming pool. Tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., we're actually opening up our registration for winter swimming lessons. So any of our swimming lesson sessions that take place between January and March, we're still not quite at the levels that we've been at pre-pandemic, but we're continuing on hiring and training staff and have plans on opening more as the weeks keep coming on. I'm committed right now to be offering certification classes once a month for the foreseeable future. I luckily was able to get another staff member who is lifeguard instructor certified to keep continuing getting more people in and certified and both guarding and learning how to teach swimming lessons to get those offerings up back to the levels that we were before a lot of those closures. It's happening a lot with a lot of pools around the area, and we're doing pretty good staff level wise compared to a lot of facilities, but still a lot more to keep working on for that. So we're also going to be doing our camps over winter break for the weeks of, it's December 20th through the 23rd and December 27th through the 31st. We'll be offering a full day camp over at the swimming pool in their community room from 9 to 4, and then a half day camp at the Pioneer Center from noon to 5 over those weeks. And then we're doing a holiday event on December 18th. We're gonna have some Christmas crafts in our community room at the pool, and then offer some swimming for the community that date as well. And then over winter break, we'll be providing additional recreation swims for 2 to 4 for the community. So that's what's coming up this next month.
Thanks, Melissa. Kathy?
Oh, am I on there?
We can hear you.
Okay, I've been practicing with my lighting in my office so that I don't look so, so I'm so distracted by my crazy hair. And
we can't even see you right now, Kathy.
I got some Christmas glasses. I'm very festive. Trying to be more professional. The Pioneer Center is doing great. Our appeal is in full swing. We've collected about almost $16,000, and we're hoping for a nice article in the local paper. So that'll be great. We're also collecting some donations for the Veterans Memorial. So that's also happening in at the same time with our appeal. We just finished our wreath sale, so that was very successful. We were pretty pleased about that. We are putting together about 130 Christmas gifts for Meals on Wheels clients. That takes a lot of time. And putting together extra Christmas boxes, food boxes for families. So Christmas time's pretty busy for us. We're wrapping up our low income energy assistance program that helps several people in our community with their PGE bill. And just getting through this holiday time, providing a lot of transportation for people. They're finally starting to get out and feel comfortable getting out. So it's all been, going along pretty closely to what we usually see this time of year.
All right, thanks, Kathy. John?
All right. Well, you guys were all talking about the community and the involvement that the folks of Oregon City do like to help out. And so I just wanted to give a quick rundown of some of the things that have been occurring. November 20th, the Greater Oregon City Watershed Council did a invasive weed removal at Abernathy Creek Park. So we got 8 bins filled up there. So that was a fantastic event. On the same day, we had the city-sponsored Friends of Tree event at Rivercrest Park. We were able to get 4 new trees planted where we'd lost some trees during the ice storm at Rivercrest, and also planted 6 new trees at Singer Creek Park. So it was really a great event. We'll be holding that event again this next April. So if you guys missed out, it's another opportunity. It really was a good event. Got to meet a lot of people throughout the community, and you get to plant some trees. So hope to see more folks out there. And we have a goal of planting 100 trees for the next one. So it was already touched on, but the ivy removal at Waterboard Park was done by the Oregon City Parks Foundation. So helping to save those trees. It was really great. And leaf cleanup on McLaughlin Promenade by the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association. So really appreciative to those groups. Leaf season's a very intense time for us. A lot of work getting all the leaves cleaned up and keeping people safe. So one other thing that we're currently working on is the move to First Street. So Public Works got over there a little bit before us, but we've been taking advantage of this nice weather to get our office space and our equipment all moved over there. It's starting to fit in pretty nicely, and we will be seeing how it'll be to operate, not out of the cemetery anymore. So it will be a unique situation in that our office staff will still be on site there with a crew member to make sure and run the cemetery, but otherwise the rest of our staff will be positioned out of First Street. So there's a lot of growing pains with that project as well, but it's a very nice facility, very grateful for it, and it's going to be nice. One other item that I wanted to bring up that we've done a social media post on, but we were getting some questions. Following the ice storm, we tried to save as many trees as we possibly could. A lot of trees received extensive damage, but we tried to prune and save what we could. Oftentimes what happens with those types of wounds on trees is that an infection can get in. The trees actually send off stress signals that attract insects. Or it doesn't allow the tree to photosynthesize enough, and pretty much they starve to death. So we are currently out flagging trees throughout our park system. The reason why we are flagging the trees is so that they can be inspected by a certified arborist. And then so we'll be taking those evaluations that we get. And, we'd love to hear that, 100% of all the trees are, perfectly healthy and there's no problems. But some of these trees we've already identified as having issues. It could be from either disease, damage. There's a multitude of factors, but we will be taking those evaluations and going through the proper process to, if need be, remove those trees, and then as soon as we can, to get them replanted. So that's all I've got for tonight.
Thanks, John. Denise?
So Kendall already touched on projects that I'm working on, but we're also in facilities with the new First Street building open. We're doing all of the facility system trainings right now, which is like the HVAC system, lighting, control management, access management, all those elements of kind of the behind the scenes of a building. This building is over 60,000 square feet, so there are a lot of systems for us to manage. Unfortunately, I have one staff person for all of our facilities right now. Well, we have one person on medical leave and one person who's just come back from medical leave. It's still probably way more than any one person can manage. So we're all trying to pitch in and help the one staff member out as much as we can. We're also managing some of the FEMA repairs right now with the fence and rail repairs for the cemetery. They're also in coordination with park maintenance, doing the backstop at Wesley Lynn. So a portion of that has been done. We had to order some additional mesh because once they pulled it down, they found it was even more warped than what it looked like when it was up above. And so replacing it is needed. So that will continue. And then the roof at Park Place is probably 90% done. Once they opened their packaging and got the roofing done, they found that there's some missing pieces. So they're trying to procure those missing pieces. And then we're also looking into what we can do to mitigate some of our mischief, I guess would be a good word for it, a positive-ish word, in our park systems, and mitigating the expense of that mischief. So we're looking at different aspects of security and cost factors for that, whether it's private security firms or more cameras or a combination thereof. We're looking at what those cost factors may be in terms of what options we may have in the future for mitigating that. So cameras are kind of an aftermath. You can kind of see what happened after the fact. It doesn't really deter. And so we're looking at options to possibly be a little bit more of a deterrent factor. So more to come on that. And, we're obviously looking at different options for the future. That's all I really have right now.
All right, thanks, Denise. And Troy, that's the end of our update.
Okay, thank you very much for that from staff. Member reports. Sean, you go first, please.
I think Karen has her hand up.
Oh, okay, Karen, did you have questions or comments for Kendall or his staff? You're muted.
I do, and I realize there's something I've needed to ask for Jonathan. The roofs on the mausoleums. What's the status?
That's actually for me, Karen.
Denise, okay, sorry, dear.
Yeah, that's all right. Facility staff is looking to get those quoted out this winter. Our quotes are only good for 30 days. So with that being the rainy weather, we're not going to be digging into any of those roofs and tearing them off and starting them over. So we'll start getting those bids out and timing it so that when the bids come in, that we're hopefully going to be into some better weather that we can get scheduled on.
Okay, my dead relatives would be really happy to have a roof over themselves, so.
No, we're definitely wanting to get that done.
Okay, thank you, dear.
All right, Sean?
Well, Troy asked me to kick this off since it's my last meeting, and I just wanted to bring up some concerns and challenges to give you guys some things to think about for next year. As we've been sitting at home for the last year and a half or so doing these meetings, I feel like our agendas have become weaker each month. Like really this meeting, we had 2 topics on the agenda. The Hazel Grove was just an announcement. So down to 2 topics where we really, at some meetings, would be at 6 to 8. And while I don't always want to go to 10 p.m., I want to make sure we're covering everything in the city that we need to be advocating for. So my challenge on that really is staff. It's up to you guys to keep your ears to the door and the floor to tell Kendall, and for Kendall to tell us what's going on out there. An example today, we know it's a hot topic, so the Sportcraft should have been an agenda topic. Even if it's a 30-second agenda, it should have been there. And I'm admitting this fault, knowing that as vice chair, I've been in these agenda meetings, but it's not solely up to me or Troy to come up with new topics for every month. So for us to be a viable committee, we need to represent and we need to be informed. This isn't just a, kind of like Troy said, we're not just a check in the box so they can get on to another committee. So that's the first thing. The other thing is each of you as PrAC members should be advocating to the city commission. So you should be writing them emails, talking with them, attend a city commission meeting and meet them afterwards or before. There's so many of these topics tonight relating to budget and maintenance and funding that are huge. And the only way they're going to get it is if it's not just Kendall and staff telling them. And they recognize, like Troy said, there's 9 of us, there should be, that we represent 37,000 people, not just 9 people. And we're better informed than most. So it's up to you. I think that's your challenge. That's your mission. We're appointed here, not just to fill a seat. You know, I think it's our duty. So, and then I'll close with this. When I first came on PrAC, my backyard was on Wesley Lynn Park, which was just a field with a design packet. So I was able to watch it constructed, but I naively joined PrAC thinking I could make a difference in this park behind me. And very quickly, the other PrAC members started explaining to me that there's other parks in the city, basically. Every year or two, we would jump in the buses from the Pioneer Center, and we would do a tour of all the parks in the city. And typically somebody in Kendall's position or Jonathan would highlight certain parks they want to take us to because of concerns or issues or for positive reasons. That's fallen off, obviously, because of COVID. But I think as new members come on, when they don't get those bus tours, they lose sight of some of those parks that they would otherwise never see. I think Brent and I had that conversation probably a year and a half ago. We had even talked about just hopping in a car and I would drive them around. But it's so important to see that it's not just the pickleball court or the mausoleum or Wesley Lynn Park, but there's so many other places that need our attention. And really that boils down to me that you have to represent the underrepresented. There's certain neighborhoods in this city that have so much of a voice, and their people will show up to meetings and say, I live 9 blocks from a park, and it's such a long walk, and there's issues there. Well, for the last 7 years, I had to drive 2.5 miles to my closest park. So be mindful of those citizens that don't have the same opportunities that some of you have. And that's who we need to represent. And it goes to where the new neighborhoods are going in, that we make sure we're land banking and prepping for that. Have, as you go through the master plan, have a look out at 20, 30 years as to what this should look like. And it's not just about the Clover in that one park. And so I don't want to look at that Clover as my soapbox, right? But how do we build the next park and not go through those same problems so that we can use our money and our time more efficiently? So just remember that there are a lot of people that don't have a clue what we do, but they appreciate going to those parks and utilizing that resource. And then they go home and then they armchair quarterback to their neighbors about this stinks and that stinks and the dog park's muddy. So we're the voice we're the voice to explain why. I can't tell you how many stories I've had, especially with Wesley Lynn, about why the playground was built that way or why the drainage swale was that way. But sometimes it makes sense. And so I just want to leave you, Kendall, Denise, and then Karen, the people that are there next year. Just because I'm not on the committee doesn't mean you can't call me and ask me. So please reach out. In fact, I would like to kind of sit in on some of the master planning meetings. I was part of the 2008 master plan, and it was an exciting time. I think all of you should really look forward to that. That's how you get to look at the next 20, 30 years. Make sure that document reflects exactly what the citizens want, and be skeptical and raise your hand, and don't just rubber stamp it. Don't let that be a meeting that you attend and then it just kind of, the design becomes like we talked about tonight. Why were those dips in the dog park? Well, nobody questioned it, right? So be skeptical. So it's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed getting to know each of you. Numerous people I can see on the screen that we've had personal phone calls, and I've appreciated every one of those. So please reach out in the future, and I'm happy to still participate. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean, very much for your service. Brent.
Hey guys, sorry about that. Sean, thank you for those words. I took some notes. I really appreciate all your years of service to this community and to this committee, sincerely. So thank you very much. Yes, I do have a report out, and let me pull up my notes. Besides Hazel Grove Park, I wanted to report out on Park Place Park. About 8 or 9 months ago, we were in conversations within this committee that there was going to be a developer that wanted to develop a house within Park Place Park and utilize the service access road as their driveway to access their house. So I followed up with Lisa Novick, who was on the planning commission and was also a Park Place resident. I say was because when I reached out to Lisa, I found out that she has left Oregon City and moved to Salem, Oregon, and is no longer on the planning commission. But what she told me was she's a little bit out of the loop. But the last that she heard was a group of neighbors were negotiating with the owner of the vacant property. Tony Conkle was helping to facilitate that. And she mentioned that Denise McGriff and Henry Mack both wrote in their report that the city should purchase that property to avoid it being developed. The city didn't take action at that time, and that time was 1995, I might add. So long story short is that the negotiations for the property, the owner has did submit an application for development, but then withdrew the application because they learned that the slope of the property was greater than 25%, making it unbuildable. So that's the only report out I have. It sounds like that house that they were going to develop on that property has been rescinded, but I don't know more than that. So I'm hoping, we did talk about making this an agenda item within PrAC, and I'm hoping that we might be able to utilize PrAC and the other committees to try and find out more information on that. Kendall, is there any way that we can make this an agenda item and
so just some clarification, since the information you provided about them rescinding the offer on the property and not moving forward with the build, what are we going to then discuss if there's no development? Because I thought our concern was there was going to be this development, and then they were going to use this path through the park as their driveway. So if that's not happening, aren't we in a good spot?
No. And the reason why I say no is because this is coming from a citizen who is no longer within Oregon City boundaries. She's from Salem and has removed herself from this process. So this to me is just hearsay and rumors. I'd like to get some confirmation on it.
Okay.
And I don't know how we would go about doing that.
I will follow up with the city manager to see where we are with that, to do some confirmation, and then we'll add that as an agenda item for our next meeting.
Perfect. Thank you, Kendall.
Thank you, Brent. Andy, do you have any report for us? Andy, you're muted if you're trying to talk to us here. There you go.
No, I do not.
Okay. Karen, do you have a report for us?
I don't, but I want to reassure Sean, who's already heard from me more than once in the last few weeks, that no, Guru, I will not forget you, and you know I will get a hold of you when I need anything. Thank you for your service.
Thank you very much. Sean, I'm going to take a minute to thank you as well. You know, I know that I'm the one that speaks every week, and if you look at Sean and I, it's better that I am on the camera more than him. However, he's feeding me with information, and his memory, as you all know, is just outstanding, and he's been on PrAC long enough that I may look good, but if I sound good, it's only because of Sean. So I appreciate that. We're always texting and calling about different things, and he's acted as a sounding board, and I really appreciate that. When he did tell me he was going to resign at the end of the year, I don't remember how I said it, but I certainly made sure he was aware that his resignation was not a complete resignation, because he would be called on multiple times for information and helping us remember things that were discussed even years ago. So appreciate your willingness to do that. Future agenda items. If you have a future agenda, I know we've already mentioned some in our discussions, and those don't need to be restated, but if you have one, please give me your hand. We'll call on you. I don't think we need to go around the board on everybody, but I'm not seeing any hands, so we will have them come up. Of course, we're going to get a pretty full agenda. We've got a few things, plus the new members, each of them taking time as well. Brent, is that something different you got for us?
Yeah. To touch on what Sean said, for a future agenda item, I would really like to somehow figure out about doing a park tour with this committee and looking at the underserved not the underserved, but all the parks within the community, and look how we can serve this community. I think that there is real value in that. I know it's a challenge during this pandemic, but I'm certain that, we're all smart people and we can figure out a way. So I just kind of want to put that down as a future agenda topic.
And I think that's good. I mean, and we can put that down, I guess, Brent, but if you're just requesting a tour, I don't know if we need to have an agenda item to discuss it. I think we can just ask that we get that scheduled.
Okay.
Rather than put it on January and then discuss it and move forward. However, I will say we did that, I want to say, 3 years ago. And for those of us on PrAC now, it only involved Karen and Sean and myself. So with the new members, I think it's something we definitely need to do. And I think February would be a good time. We'd have our new members and we're at that point going to be heading into spring. And I think that's a good opportunity. Kendall, I'm open to however you want to do that, but just what we did before is I think it was a small bus or van and we all met one place and just drove around, and sometimes we only spent 2 minutes at each park. Jonathan was there, was able to share with us. And I don't know if one of Kathy's vans is available for something like that in an afternoon or an evening, or two of them to take us around. But anyway, that's how we did it before, and it worked out really well. We just piled in there and went from park to park, and Jonathan spoke to us at each one. Brent?
And Troy, one other future agenda item is, I believe about a year ago or so, when we were looking at future agenda items and what we wanted to do with PrAC, we looked at looking at the master plan for Oregon City and looking at how, what parks, what neighborhoods were being underserved, what weren't. I think we kind of need to not lose focus of that and maybe revisit the future agenda topics master list that we made a while ago. So we keep that in our forefront.
Okay. Yeah, and I think the tour of the parks will help for that as well, because as we do the master plan that we have in the works coming up, it's going to be nice for us to have that information, as PrAC is going to be a part of that process as well.
Yep. Thank you.
Karen, future agenda item.
No, I was just laughing that you got around to the fact it was a Pioneer Center bus. And Kathy, it's okay. This limited old senior will be on the bus, so we'll make it legal. She'll understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if it was one of those buses or a different one, but I do remember it was a smaller, wasn't a very, very large bus. So, and if I remember, Kendall, last time, Phil drove the bus and provided entertainment for us. So I think that's going to fall on you this time.
Okay, no.
Singing, dancing, whatever you prefer is fine.
Yeah, I'll get John to tell some jokes.
And I've never done a TikTok, but that would be my first. I would do that. So I think it'd be fun to make that happen. That's it for future agenda items. Next scheduled meeting is January 27th. Same time, same place, and meeting adjourned. Have a good night.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Thank you.